Hi, and welcome to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, joined, of course, by my wonderful co-host, Judy Loge.
Good Monday.
It's Monday again?
Yes, it is. And this will air all week long, through Rogers. But our viewers are once again in for a wonderful show.
I know, absolutely. And you know what? I forgot to mention it just before we started, but it is our 9th anniversary this week.
Well, there you go. Celebration time. Crack the champagne.
I know. 9 years ago on the 27th, we kicked off.
Hard to even believe.
I don't even know where the time went.
Well, yay for us.
I know.
Yay to Rogers.
Yay
to you guys. How lucky are you?
That's right. All right, so we're going to kick it off, as we always do, with an amazing quote, and I'm going to ask Judy to share her quote today.
And this is anonymous. Get that word out on a Monday morning. However, here's how it goes. It's short and sweet. Until you have real compassion, you cannot recognize love.
Love it.
Doesn't that say it all?
I know, and we're going to talk a lot about that actually in this quick chat segment. And really compassion, I think, has to be the heart of everything.
I do so agree, and we don't often recognize, people say that love means this and love means that. I think it's just any act of kindness, especially for those who you see are struggling, suffering, needing your assistance, reaching out and supporting you.
Yeah.
When you can do that for another human being, that's love.
Absolutely.
No matter what.
I agree. So, and talking about that, so the community, the province lost an amazing, compassionate, community-minded gentleman not too long ago, Mr. Leon Bremner. Leon
Bremner was known not just in Miramichi as a Nappaner, a proud Nappaner.
Yes, absolutely.
Entrepreneur in his years for a long time, and community giver. He was involved in so many organizations, and he was one of the most compassionate people I've ever had the honor of knowing.
And a charter member of the Rotary Club of Chatham.
He was, and so proud to be.
Know.
And stood on so many boards, I should say, sat on so many various organizations, and he was strong, and he held his he held what he thought was right and didn't back away, but he would listen if someone challenged him,
Absolutely.
But he loved to have a strong voice, and he gave so much, and I will miss him tremendously.
Yeah.
And he was known all across the Maritimes, if not beyond, for his love and compassion for fellow human beings.
Absolutely. We had him over for Thanksgiving dinner just the weekend before, just a few days before, so we got to have, Dad and he were neighbors, so we got to have a wonderful meal with him.
You know what I did, Veronique, about 2 years ago? I thought, we often say how much we care for somebody, and we often even show them, which is, action speaks louder than words.
Absolutely.
However, I thought, I don't tell him quite enough what he means to me, and I wrote him a letter. And I wrote him a detailed letter, and I put all of my thoughts and poured all my heart into it, and told him what he meant to me, and he had tears in his eyes when he came to me, and he said, I got that letter, and I read it over and over, and I don't think I've ever read anything that touched me like that did, and I'll cherish it.
Yeah. Well, it's so important to put your words to paper, right? We often send off a quick message or text or email or whatever, but to have that written word is different.
I agree. So it's a good feeling knowing that he always had that and cherished that, and that you say goodbye knowing that you did offer that person a show of love.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? And so speaking of that, actually, one of the proudest moments as a family member of you and my Uncle Gerard, Percy's Place opened.
Percy's Place opened.
A week ago today.
Yes.
On Gerard's birthday.
How ironic is that? That was never the plan to pick a date or to have that day on his birthday. Gerard, that's worked and put so much love and effort and passion into this construction of this hospice. It's, I'm sure people by now must know about it, but if they don't, it is an 8-bed, state-of-the-art hospice located at 1298 Water Street. And it's overlooking the mighty Miramichi River.
Incredible.
And it's just a beautiful facility staffed by 11 amazing full-time medical team members.
Incredible.
And so the first patient came in on October 16th.
Yes.
And it was a day for everyone to say, okay, this is the first residential hospice ever built in northern New Brunswick.
Absolutely.
And so that in itself is quite a thing, because there's never been one on its own. So to get everyone in there and trained and have the first patient come in, it ran very smoothly. And then right after that, there was another patient and another patient. And then along the way, you hear from family members that what a beautiful, I guess, proper, beautiful setting it is in, because there's privacy, right?
Yeah.
There's no, crash carts and codes going off and
Like in the hospital.
like commotion,
Yeah.
commotion and loudness. It's very tranquil, and they're given that. It's such a beautiful facility, and of course we're getting Percy's website up and established this week, so there will be more for the public to know about how it runs as far as referral basis, that type of thing, and all the details as to when does a person realize that their family is in need of palliative care, and what is the determining factor as far as meeting with your
exactly,
the doctor, and having them work with the nurses and getting that person admitted. So it is like a labor of love, a true labor of love.
Absolutely.
And we are so proud, and it's going extremely well, and we've had absolutely tremendous community support.
Yep.
I think because it's privately funded.
Right, so it's privately funded by the Dr. Gerard and Judy Loge Foundation, and so for those who don't know, so Percy's Place is named after Gerard's father, my grandfather, and Grandpa was a doctor, and as was his father.
Yes.
So there are multiple generations of doctors in our family. We know, of course, your son is another one, and then Arthur. His 3 kids are all doctors, and so it's absolutely it's in the family blood for sure. And so it was named after Grandpa Percy, who many had as a doctor.
Oh, many.
And I still hear stories of people who say, oh, Dr. Percy was my doctor at the time, or he delivered my 7 siblings, and Gerard tells the story, and I'll tell it right now, but Gerard tells the story going around with Grandpa when people still made house calls, right?
Yes.
And he was young, and he had gone to visit this family, and Grandpa had delivered all 8 of the children. And this was before Medicare, right? And Grandpa had delivered all 8 of the children, and the family gave Grandpa a cigar box full of quarters, right? And then I think there was some carrots and and some turnips or something like that, and so it amounted to about $25 in quarters in that. And Grandpa said to Gerard at the time, like, it's not about the money, it's about being with people in their moments when they need you the most.
Compassion again.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Gerard, talks about that driving him, for his whole career.
For sure.
And so, when he named it after Grandpa, what a proud moment for the family, for sure.
What a beautiful legacy. He was not just a wonderful physician to so many for so many years, but he was also a very vibrant community member.
He was mayor.
He was mayor, and I believe coroner at one point.
He was the coroner at one point. Yeah, Dad used to go on coroner calls with him.
Yeah. So he had 7 children too, and your mother was just incredible. So this is a beautiful legacy, and again, people are very, very excited that this hospice is standalone, and again, no government support, so it's privately funded through our foundation. And I guess, just in case anyone's wondering, it is its own operation. It's separate from Hospice Miramichi.
Correct. Yeah.
That's
it's amazing. What a legacy, but also just what a labor of love, because I know that there were so many late nights and early mornings and so many hours that the 2 of you put into bringing this to fruition.
Absolutely.
And really poured your heart, soul, sweat, and tears in there.
We did. So it's going beautifully. A lot of admissions. It's sad. It's one of those things very unique where you drive by and you see the families gathered outside in the parking lot. You know that they're surrounding their loved one who is in the end journey of their life at their most greatest time. And it's a celebration of the next life to come. And it's also peaceful.
Yeah.
Peaceful.
And that's so important.
Yes, it is. So we're very, very proud. And thank you to all of the community who have supported it and continue to support us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the beginning of this journey, right?
And speaking of compassion, you are one of the most compassionate people I know. Absolutely. And I have to stop saying that word. I guess it's my word of the day, my Monday word. I'll choose another one tomorrow.
That's okay.
But you have been totally incredible. And we're going to talk about your mother and part of her journey from being a healthy, vibrant community member and teacher and whatever else you want to talk about her into this next phase that she has entered as far as her mental health goes.
Yeah, and it's a challenging one. There's a lot that they don't tell you about Alzheimer's and the journey through that, right? And so Mom started very unexpectedly down this road. So 4 years ago, right about now, actually, we discovered that Mom had some serious heart issues, and she was 75 at the time, still working full-time as a chaplain at the hospital. So she had been there for 11 years, and that was her second career. Mom had been a teacher for kids with disabilities for 32 years prior to that. So just one of the most incredible human beings that I've ever met.
Me too.
Like she's just, and she's, when you've spent time in her presence that she's brought you calm and love and peace into your life. Like she's just one of those people, and it is truly fundamentally her. It's not something that she's had to work at.
She really
she's just truly that human being. And so Mom had been diagnosed as she was having one of her cataracts off, actually. The nurse noticed an irregular heartbeat, and so that a series of tests kind of came from that. And so we headed to St. John in November of 2019. And I'll tell you in a second why that's pertinent. So, we were there, and it was a longer journey than we expected. So Mom had a quadruple bypass, open heart, and really did not do well with the anesthesia or the pain medication afterwards. And it caused a significant amount of hallucinations for Mom. Mom had a psychotic episode for about 6 days, and it was incredibly difficult and really just tough to navigate. And so Mom couldn't have any pain meds, and so she couldn't get up and do the things that she needed to do to walk around that you have to do after you have heart surgery. Like that is the critical piece to recovery, is getting right up, walking almost like the next day.
Yes, my mom went through open heart.
Right, it's insane to me, but as I saw person after person going through that, I was like, oh, I get it now. And then, home within 5 days. But for Mom, it was different. And she had a stroke at about day 7.
Oh, my God.
And saved herself. She realized something was going wrong, pushed the button, and they found her mid-stroke. And so we're able to get the clot buster into her. And but that really changed our lives. And we never dealt with it, to be honest with you. We just went on as if it were nothing. And so Mom spent 9 weeks in the hospital. Came home just before COVID hit. Oh. Yeah, literally like two weeks before COVID hit. And so that began our journey. And then she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So she came home in February. She was diagnosed in August of 2020. And that was really the beginning of the changes for her. And it's been very slow for Mom. Others have a very quick journey. I know a friend of mine went through it. It was 2 years from the time she was diagnosed till her mom passed. Whereas Mom, it's been a long 3-year journey. Didn't see a lot of symptoms. Mom wasn't very forgetful or things like that, but you could notice that
more vague.
Yeah, it was. She didn't understand how a mortgage worked.
Right. Well,
even though she had had multiple mortgages throughout her life, right? So she, just didn't click for her, or how her taxes worked all of a sudden, right? So we started to notice those things. And Mom had been living with me since she came home from the hospital, and we had a bit of we had a caregiver that would come in a couple of days a week, a few hours a week, so probably about 5 or 6 hours a week at first. And, it was helpful. Mom thought she was the housekeeper, and really thankfully Lottie did do our laundry, so it was fantastic for me.
You were the primary caregiver.
Yeah, I have been her primary caregiver since she went into the hospital for her heart. And so, and I work full time, and I volunteer a lot, and I have counsel, and I have all of those things, and
I don't know how you do it.
And so, Mom, a year ago, at Christmas, December 5th, started hallucinating. She got sick. She got RSV at that time. We thought it was just a medication that was causing it, but it never went. No. And Mom started hallucinating and paranoia. And that was really tough because, a lot of times she'd have great conversations, but then all of a sudden she'd start talking to the little girl beside her.
Isn't it unbelievable how the mind can go
how
the mind works?
But, still, the incredible person that Mom is, her hallucination was that we had taken in several, so probably 5 or 6 Syrian children who had come over to Canada fleeing as refugees in her mind, right? So, and I said at one point, I said, Mom, they got to go home. I can't afford to feed them,
Yes.
And she's like, no. She said, we have to do this, right? And then the hallucination stayed very consistent. So the Syrian children, and then there was a gentleman and his daughter. None of them speak English. And then there were 2 older ladies that watched TV with her. And they have lived with us for a year.
And you have to compose yourself to play it down, not to make a big scene. You don't do that to people. You don't demean them or say, what are you talking about? There's nobody here. You just have to basically let them
navigate through it, right?
Navigate through it, be there to support them.
Absolutely.
Don't agitate them.
And she would say, they're in my bed. So I would go down the hall and I would say, no, I've kicked them out. Just so that she could feel some comfort. And then, and paranoia set in, at one point she could see them in the trees.
Tortured mind.
She was for quite a bit of time. And so recently, about 2.5 weeks ago, she forgot me.
And that would be, for me, the turning point and the most heart-stopping moment of all of this story.
It was, and it was, be careful of what you pray for, because you just might get it, right? So in that case, I really wanted Mom to stop being tortured. I wanted Mom to find some peace, and so I really wanted her actually to progress to that next step where she didn't know any of us. Right? Where she was kind of, I guess, lost a bit in her mind.
Not aware.
No, exactly.
Totally not aware.
Exactly.
Because she was getting there, you thought.
And in April, we had made the decision to have her assessed. Mm-hmm. She was assessed at that time of needing the highest level of care possible. We were on the list. It took a long time. But yesterday, we moved her into full-time care at Loge Hall. And probably the toughest decision I ever had to make, and to leave her there. To leave her there was the toughest thing I ever did. And unfortunately for me, what's happened is the last 2 days, Mom has been the most aware that I've seen her probably in 3 years.
Why? You have to wonder why when you think you're doing the very best thing. And it is a safety first thing. It absolutely, there's my word again, but it is absolutely impaired. That she is in a place where she's surrounded by caregivers. When you're working, that you're not trying to focus on you have to work, so you're trying to be the best daughter you can be, which you've been exemplary, Veronique. Can I just say how beyond all you've been?
She's my best friend. So it was really tough. I was there this morning. I've taken a few days off work to just kind of help Mom get settled. This morning she, and I expected the, I want to go home kind of thing, but for the last year, Mom has not thought that she lived at home with me. She thought she lived in a place that I managed for work. She thought it was a building, right? So I really actually thought the transition would be a lot easier. It has not been.
No.
But that's okay. That's part of what you have to go through on that journey, and a lot of different things in different days. But I knew I made the best decision for her. But
and socially, tough. It will come. It will be better because you can go and visit her and have more of that time spent as opposed to trying to work and trying to be there for her and all of that. So I wish you the best.
Thank you. So on that note, we're going to head into our break. I'm going to pull it together, and we're going to have 2 amazing guests that are going to join us. So we'll see you right after the break. Hi, and welcome back to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, joined, of course, by my amazing co-host, Judy Loge.
Hello, Veronique. I just want to say you did that so professionally, talking about your experience with your mother, and you just brought it home to so many of our viewers who are walking the same walk, that this is part of life's process for a lot of people.
Oh, I'm not alone, I know that.
And you're not alone, but I'm here for you.
I know, and I know that, and you have been a wonderful support to me for all of these 4 years, but I know so many people are going through it out there, and it is a very lonely journey at times, but just know that you are not alone in the grand scheme of things. But let's talk about some good stuff. now that I've depressed all of our viewers and our guests, it is such a pleasure to welcome Guy Richard from the Mortgage Architects to our show. You're a first-time guest for us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
We are so pleased to have you. And we've been trying to get Guy on for a while, but between scheduling and all of our commitments and his commitments and everything, it's taken us a bit. But I am so excited to have you here because I know that buying a house is an overwhelming experience. And we are going to navigate that with you. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm from Miramichi. My wife Kelly and I live here. We are both from the area. Spent some time away and moved back in 2004. I started my business here in 2006, and been doing it since then. So going on my 18th year.
Wow.
I started this business with a company called Mortgage Center Canada. I spent 16 years with them.
Wow.
16 awesome years.
Yep.
It was, for that time it was my family, my second family.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
And recently, about a year and a half ago or so, moved to Mortgage Architects, which is a sister company to Mortgage Center.
Okay.
That was a time in my career where I needed maybe a little bit of a change.
Yes.
And working for a smaller sort of version of the company that gives me more flexibility, and I was sort of ready for that for a while. So and it's been good. So
Big change though.
It's a huge change.
Yeah.
And doing it on the tail end of a couple of really busy years with COVID and a crazy real estate market.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying a while ago about having a depressing conversation. Very much of our industry has been in a depressive state for a while.
Absolutely.
With interest rates moving and uncertainty of the market and
very much so.
Housing crisis.
Yeah.
People that have a hard time finding affordable housing. Period. Whether it's renting or buying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not an easy,
No.
it's not an easy line of work,
Yeah.
but it's something that I've grown to really enjoy, and to help people become homeowners is something that I like to do.
And I can see the passion as you're talking for your work. That's important,
Yeah.
It's not always about the best salary or whatever, even if it's a good salary.
Yeah.
It's about liking getting up and going to helping other
Absolutely.
people find whatever they need to find through your profession.
Yep.
Yep.
That's great. And I just jotted down, what are let's just go with 3 essential documents that new homeowners should have ready when they're applying for a mortgage, Guy?
That's a great question, because the mortgage transaction is very paperwork heavy.
Oh, yes.
For anyone that's gone through the process, especially in the last few years, it can be really taxing on someone. But of course, we qualify mortgage applicants based on their income, so their employment or the source of income. So things like having access to a pay stub, your tax returns. In a lot of cases, they'll ask for an employment letter just to confirm how long you've been employed and in what position, at what rate, and so the employment is definitely key. When purchasing a new home, the other part of the transaction that can be very paperwork heavy is the down payment.
Yeah.
There are rules in place because of laws in Canada about not only having access to down payment, but where the source of the down payment is coming from. So being able to provide bank statements showing that you've had a down payment for some time, ideally 90 days or more, is also documents you'll be asked to be provided.
Right, like having that money in your account for a bit, right? Like it doesn't just pop up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, while gifts are permitted, and you can also borrow, if credit score is strong enough, you can borrow from a line of credit as long as we include that new debt in your debt ratios,
Right.
is still permissible. But the strongest way to go into a mortgage application is to have the money in a bank account for 90 days or more.
Right.
It just shows that the person's made an attempt and has some, I guess, skin in the game when it comes to being serious about buying, right?
Yeah.
And the last thing, and it's something that a lot of people may not think about, is you need the birth certificate here in the province in New Brunswick, ID period, but birth certificate, you need that if you're born in Canada to purchase property in New Brunswick.
Interesting.
Yeah, and if you're not born in Canada, or if you're new to Canada, you'll need other documentation like maybe a passport, your work permits, things like that. So.
This is really valuable information because people may be getting set to go through something like this, and they wouldn't. This is a forewarning. Yep. This is what has to take place. At least those 3 documents have to be kind of.
Well, especially the birth certificate, because it's not like I would have to look for mine.
Yeah, and
right?
And a lot of people do.
Yeah.
We get 10 days before closing, and the lawyer's asking, for the birth certificate from the clients, and then they don't have one. So
Right.
we generally bring that up early
Yes.
in the conversation, like from day one, like you'll be asked to provide this if you're
Right.
born in Canada, and if they don't have it, unfortunately, they have to go through the steps to order one from
Which
the
is
province
not
they're
easy.
born in. And,
No, and thank you though. That
Yeah.
is essential to
Yeah.
the question I asked.
yeah.
So when you're buying your first home, it's so exciting, so exciting.
I remember.
Yeah, and it's terrifying, right? Because there's so much to go through. But how do first time home buyers really increase their chances of qualifying for a mortgage? Like, especially with a lower credit score, some of us have not been great, or we've struggled a bit. Like, how do we improve that?
Well, the key thing there is that most of us haven't been taught how to manage
Right.
credit or how
Yeah.
to build credit, even manage it. And I remember when I first started in this business, I used to go into the high schools, local high schools, and talk to kids about how to,
yeah.
Not miss your cell phone payment or not,
Smart.
Yeah.
And of course with the years and getting busier, it's been harder to get to do that. But it should really start early. Establishing what they call revolving credit, so having access to credit cards or lines of credit that are type of credit that we place a lot of emphasis on when you're trying to buy a home. And the reason why is that a credit card or a line of credit will show you not only how you're making your payments, but how you manage money, period. Having access to it, whether if you're using it all or none, it says a lot about someone and their spending habits. So so getting educated about how to build your revolving credit early, and it can happen right out of high school. I remember when I first went to university, they were throwing MasterCard applications for
Yes.
$500, right?
Yeah.
And of course that's a free $500 in a student's world, right?
Yeah.
So, but we're
Yeah.
never taught how to manage that. So you really should be taught in schools.
Good point. And I like that you were going out early at a very, when they were in high school and
Yeah.
trying to give them information that was essential
Yeah.
to moving forward and managing financial affairs.
Well, I remember moving into residence at UNB, and so it was a while ago.
Oh, a couple of years ago.
It was a while ago, and I remember getting a pamphlet, and you could check off which credit cards you wanted, right?
Oh.
And it was a $500 credit limit,
Oh.
but you could check, and then
Yeah.
they would give you a credit card, basically.
Like you said, you're young and you're just kind of
Yes.
being foolish. You don't know what you're really.
Not real sensible.
No. So, what are some of the three? Let's just go with three top mistakes that some homeowners commonly make when they are comparing mortgage rates.
That's a great question. I think the most common mistake is putting too much emphasis on shopping just based on the interest rate. When people come to me and ask, what is going to be my interest rate, typically what they're asking is, "Gee, what is this mortgage going to cost me?"
Yeah.
And it's hard to really pinpoint the true cost of a mortgage until you get through a good part of it. The stats show, CMHC had stats showing that 60% of all 5-year fixed mortgages in Canada do not see past year 3. And of course, when you're breaking a mortgage, it can get very costly.
Yeah.
And if you're going from a mortgage that has a higher rate to a mortgage that's going to have a lower rate, it can get very, very costly. So being able to understand how lenders penalize people for breaking mortgage is probably I would say is where most of the money is lost. Most lenders are competitive. You might get 0.1, 0.2% different or better on a rate if you're doing a little bit of shopping, or if you're working with a broker that's trying to place a business based on having the best rate. But the other costs, the hidden costs that can totally chew up all of the savings that you're trying to put on the front end to save on the back end. And so penalties are huge. So understanding that, working with someone who understands not just that, but what the life cycle of your mortgage is going to be. You're planning on being there for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Is this a starter home that you're going to maybe look to sell or keep? So it really goes beyond just, hey, what am I paying for an interest rate today?
There's a lot to it.
I know.
And I know so many people, right now that are going through that hopefully are watching or going to take this information back and be able to deal with it from your, perspective and experience.
Yeah,
Advice.
absolutely. One of those things that that mortgage lenders, brokers look at is that debt to income ratio, which can be really tough for a regular person to understand.
Yeah.
You know, so what is the recommended debt to income ratio, and how can I improve mine?
Well, also a great question. The recommended debt to income is 42%. So your debt shouldn't be 42% or more than your gross total income, monthly income or annual income. Okay. Now, in certain cases, if your credit score is good, you can go to 44%, which is a little bit better, but that's sort of the range.
Yep.
The biggest thing that we're seeing right now is that you have an automobile loan that's of any any size, I guess. Those are I call them mortgage killers, because
really?
Having with how tight the qualifying guidelines are to be able to purchase a home in Canada nowadays, because we now have what's called the stress test, which is you add basically 2% to your actual interest rate. You have to qualify at that payment in order to purchase housing.
Okay.
And we've seen rates shoot up more than 4.5% in the last 2 years. When you add a vehicle payment to that new qualifying payment, unless there's two incomes in the household and that the overall household income is above average, it's difficult to
Good
qualify.
point.
Yeah.
Good to bring up.
So my recommendation would be, if you're going to be looking at purchasing a home, make sure that you don't have an auto loan or make a purchase out of the blue of a vehicle that's going to prevent you from being able to qualify mortgage-wise.
Interesting.
Very interesting. And
Wow.
like I said, I'm loving all this information.
know.
That's straight to the point. What is the difference, Enki, between fixed and adjustable rate mortgages, and which one is typically better for the new buyers?
Well, better for the new buyer, it depends on the type of buyer. For years, variable rates have had outperformed fixed rates. Ever since the market crashed in 2008 in the U.S., I would say that people that have had variable rate mortgages have done better on average, until they didn't, which
Right.
was about just over 2 years ago, or actually a year and a half ago or more. And in March of 2021, I think rates started to increase. Sorry, 2022, and since then, it's been very difficult to gauge what rate's going to be better for a person. It depends on how long they're planning on keeping the home. It depends on whether or not their fixed rate is going to be portable if they choose to go to a new home or to basically a new lender at some point. So there's a lot of factors that go into play. We typically recommend to go with a payment that you're comfortable with, and also with a product that you're not going to lose sleep at night.
Right.
So if you're aware of the risks of a variable and you're okay with some fluctuation in your payment, it can be the right product a lot of the time, because a variable rate mortgage only carries a 3-month interest penalty to break. So it can minimize a lot of those costs that we were talking about in terms of breaking in a mortgage early,
Right.
but a fixed rate does allow for a lot safer planning, especially for someone who may have a tight budget and may not be overly comfortable with the idea that the payment may move up or down during the term of the mortgage.
Well, thank you.
So we only have a few minutes left.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, and I've got so many questions, but what are some of the most important factors that lenders consider when determining the amount that a buyer can borrow?
So determining the amount, that's pretty simple. It's income versus debt. When you look at qualifying for a mortgage, is what are you bringing to the table for income versus what you have out extended in terms of debt. So credit card debt, loans, things of that nature. And the formula is fairly straightforward. It's not a how much you qualify for based on just that. There's other factors like property taxes. That's accounted into the purchase or into the planning of a mortgage, as well as we use a heating component. But for the most part, it's how much you're bringing in and how much is going out
the door.
Yeah, so that 42 to 44%
Right.
ratio is where you need to be.
No time for another question?
Yeah, we have one more. You can.
Okay, real quickly, I jotted
sure.
how far in advance should buyers start preparing then, Guy, for their financials before applying for a mortgage?
Well, I touched on that quickly.
Yeah,
For
you
me,
did.
it should be taught in high school.
Right.
I'll never give up on
Yes.
that idea because I truly believe, just like food, you need to put a roof over your head. People need to eat and live somewhere, and it's too important to not look at early.
Okay.
But having said that, I would say 6 to 12 months, where you really need to start looking, okay, is my credit going to be strong enough? Am I doing the right things with, should I hold off on buying that vehicle?
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah.
But 6 to 12 months also gives the opportunity for someone like myself to properly adjust or plan things if everything is not working out perfectly from day one. The biggest mistake people make is they'll go place an offer on a property and then rush around to not only try to find financing, but want the best rate and the best, terms of financing, which it doesn't make for a very smooth experience for anyone.
Well, you really nailed those answers that we had.
I know, and it was such great information, and it can be so overwhelming to buy a home, whether it's your first time or not. And I really appreciate the time you took today to kind of explain some of those really key things that happen.
Thanks for having me.
So
I haven't
good to
done
have
this in
you.
a while, and it's been a pleasure.
You're just
Awesome.
as comfortable as could be.
So don't go too far. We have another great guest right after this break. So go grab a snack. I like snacks. Go grab a snack, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes. Don't move. Hi, and welcome back to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, and of course, my co-host is fabulous still sitting beside me, Judy Loche.
I'm still sitting here. That's the main thing. We're still together between two beautiful redheads. What can I say? It's Monday. And
It's a perfect Monday.
Lovely is right.
We have a fantastic first-time guest as well. It's a wonderful. I'm loving this show.
I know.
And
Interesting.
so Brianna Vey is joining us from J. Dunham Law, and you are a paralegal there.
Yes, I am.
We are so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So for those out there who don't know you,
Yes.
tell us a bit about you.
Okay. Well, I'm from Fredericton. I've lived in Fredericton most of my life, and I am a recent first-time home buyer.
Woo!
Yes.
Oh.
So all of this information is very fresh for me. Everything you had to share was
yes.
all very fresh for me. It's all
I bet.
comes back in waves because
Yeah.
it's quite an adventure.
It can be quite terrifying.
Yeah, it can be quite terrifying. It's also very exciting.
And
It is.
interesting.
Very interesting. I learned so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're living in Fredericton. Thanks
Yes.
for driving over today or
It's
last
a
night
lovely
whenever
drive.
you came.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
this morning. It's
And
beautiful.
you have siblings, or just tell us quickly a little bit more
I
about
do
you.
have siblings. Yes, I have 3 siblings. I actually have a brother who works in Renews at the
okay.
Atlantic Institution.
Okay.
So waved at his house as I drove by this
Yeah, of
morning.
course.
And yeah, I've been a paralegal for about 5 years now, and I've worked at J. Donovan Law Group for that whole time.
Very good.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I made some little questions here. Normally
Okay.
just shoot them at you, but I want to get this the best bang for the buck as far as,
I'm ready.
not literally, but
no buck banging.
But
no
I
buck
want to
banging.
have the questions laid out. So
Yes.
what are the key legal considerations for buyers when it comes to property taxes in different provinces across Canada? Because we've had a lot of people coming to our province, recently and over the
Yeah.
last few years. So, so basically where we've seen so many people coming in to our area, is it tougher or easier?
Well, I think it's hard to say tougher or easier. So in various provinces, they all treat land transfer tax differently.
Okay.
So some provinces have sliding scales, meaning on the first 500,000 you pay this amount, on the next 500,000 you pay this amount. Some provinces, like New Brunswick, it's a percentage of the purchase price or the assessed value, whichever is higher. So here in New Brunswick, it's 0.10% of your purchase price or your assessed value. Now, I think a thing that's important for people to remember is that property transfer tax and property taxes are 2 very different things. So a lot of times I find home buyers, first time or not, sometimes are confused by which is which and when
Right.
which is paid.
Yep.
So the property transfer tax is only paid by the buyer when the property is transferred into their name.
Okay.
Whereas your property taxes are an annual amount that's paid back to the province
Yes.
based on the assessment of the property you
Right.
own. Yeah.
And that's always a challenge, right? Is that people, and it's the same with you see the assessment of your house,
Right.
and it's typically lower
Yeah.
than what you pay for the house,
Right,
right?
right.
And so it's like,
Yes, yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
people will say, they'll say,
Yeah.
well, I think I'm actually buying the house at this amount, so why am I paying this amount? It's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but it's
It's
reality.
it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when buyers, and it gets very overwhelming, we talked about that, and I bought my house 2.5 years ago, and very, very happily. I bought it actually because of the layout and the location of it, because of Mom's diagnosis, because Mom
Right.
had just been diagnosed right before I bought the house, and so we're 2 minutes away from my dearest auntie and uncle,
That's
right? And
convenient,
that was,
that's great.
That was part of it, right? And
Yeah.
we're 7 minutes away from the hospital.
Love
But so, but when we're looking at and title searches, property liens, encumbrances maybe, and those are big words that
Yeah.
most of us don't use on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
But
No?
I know, Judy,
I
you
do.
all the time. Yeah, you do. The rest of us not so much. But how can we ensure, like when we're buying a house, that it's a smooth transition or transaction? Like, is there anything that we can do beforehand, or?
Get a lawyer.
Yeah.
Is the real answer.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, a lot of people like to do what we would refer to as like a private sale.
Right.
But no matter what, you're going to need a lawyer. So before you put an offer in on a property, you can hire a lawyer to do a preliminary title search, or to get what's called a certificate of registered ownership that shows the legal owners of the property, any encumbrances, any liens on the property, so that the lawyer can ensure with the vendor's lawyer that those are cleared up by the time the property is ready to go into your name.
Because an encumbrance means that somebody else has right to it.
Right. And sometimes people will see encumbrances that are like MB Power or Bella Line. Those aren't really anything to worry about.
Right.
But right-of-ways, easements, those are things that might affect your ownership of the property. You might not want your neighbor's old friend Bob dragging his cattle through your property.
Right.
Now that you own it, and the previous owner
Even
might
though
have been
Bob can.
and
Yeah.
Bob can, and the previous owner might have been okay with that.
Right.
But you have to make sure you're okay with that, and what part of your land's affected, how your land's affected. So that's something a lawyer can look into for you and provide some insight on, so that when you're putting your offer in, you're more confident
Right.
and better understand what exactly you're buying.
Okay, so just in summation then, what does it mean to be in land titles or not?
That's a great question,
Okay.
because that can be very confusing.
Because
Yeah.
it can slow down the process.
It
too,
definitely,
right?
it almost is guaranteed to slow down the
Right.
process, because it's a third party who's now involved. It's another step that's involved to the process. So a lot of properties are still not in the new land title system. And the land title system is a system that's fairly new. I mean, it's about a decade or so old, but it certifies the title of a property. So it basically means that when this property is going into your name, it's certifying, the government is certifying that the title of that property is clean and it's yours and it's safe and you don't have to worry about anything. So when you're purchasing property, you have to migrate it into the land title system if it's not already in the land title system. Again, that's something a lawyer can tell you. They can search the title of the property, see that it's in the land title system or it's not. Usually at that point, a title searcher is involved, and the title searcher can make sure there's no encumbrances, no liens, no issues in title before it goes into your name. So it is a little extra work, but it also provides peace of mind. So it is a great thing.
Yeah, that's great, thanks.
Yeah, I remember my first house wasn't yet in land titles, and so it took like we couldn't close when I wanted
Right.
to.
A lot of times people will call and say, I want a quick closing, I want to close next week, which can certainly happen. But if the property's not in land titles, it might not happen that quickly.
Yeah.
I'm glad we asked that. I asked that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the important legal rights and responsibilities that buyers should be aware of when it comes to property disclosures, particularly, and warranties, but really property disclosure?
Yeah, independent legal advice is a safe bet every time. asking for full disclosure, so property disclosure statement, ensuring that you have all the paperwork relating to the property you're purchasing so you can meet with your lawyer, review those documents, make sure you're buying what you think you're buying. Also, if you find that the vendor was dishonest or didn't disclose things they should have disclosed to you, the right to act upon that, the right to sue for damages if you buy something that has been misrepresented to you. So it's very important to an inspection. I can't harp on inspection enough, especially in the last couple of years. I know the housing market's been tough and people have been kind of persuaded to forgo inspections in order to get the property they want. So risky, you know, that's something you're really, really doing at your own risk. And obviously it's no lawyer would recommend that. And you shouldn't feel pressured to forego an inspection. You should feel your realtor or your lawyer should always encourage an inspection to make sure that you are buying what you think you're buying and that you're not going to be surprised in a few months.
You hear about all these big things that are hidden when you go through that you would never have thought about.
And that's the thing. Sometimes people look at a house, everything seems beautiful, but you can't see through the walls.
Or the cracks in the foundation, or the little area in the corner that's been in it.
Well, so years ago, of course, I owned a business, and we purchased it privately. And I didn't have a real estate agent at the time. I did have a lawyer, but we purchased it privately. And when I had my first flood, I say first because most know I had 3. When I had my first flood, I heard a few days later, oh, didn't he tell you that he had had a flood and fixed that himself? And I'm like, no, because we would have had a plumber fix the pipe correctly, because we did fix other things, right? But we didn't have a property disclosure and we didn't have any of that stuff, right? So I was not high and dry. I was definitely low and wet at that point, right? But I now I would know enough to do it. But at the time we purchased it privately and they didn't disclose that, you know, they had that happen before.
So keyword, get the inspection done, and
always
you've
get the
stressed
inspection
the importance done. My burning question. I want to know, can you provide guidance on understanding and negotiating the terms and conditions of purchase agreements?
Yes.
And it can be quite overwhelming trying to understand, especially for first-time buyers. So I just want you to speak to that.
Right. So usually if there's a realtor involved, that's where your purchase and sale agreement is going to be prepared. Usually realtors prepare the agreement of purchase and sale. But before you sign the agreement of purchase and sale, you are allowed to have independent legal advice to make sure what you are signing is fully understood by you. I know sometimes, especially like in my experience, being a first-time home buyer, you're so excited. You know, you got your home and you just want to close and you want to move in and you just want to forget about everything else. But you also want to make sure everything you're agreeing to and signing your name on, a legally binding document, you understand what you're doing. So you can take your agreement of purchase and sale to a lawyer for independent legal advice and ask all the questions. Ask all the questions. Ask your realtor questions. Ask your lawyer questions. Don't just let your excitement take over and rush into signing. Without fully understanding what you're signing.
I love this whole conversation because people just sometimes do not know. Any of this.
And I think a lot of people too are just used to, like, you know, when you're getting your mortgage approval, you're just sign, carry on.
Because there's so much of it,
You're agreeing to purchase sale, sign, and carry on. And then it comes to closing day and something happens. Something always happens. Something happens and, well, I didn't know that, or I didn't see that, or no one told me that. You know, you have to have responsibility and do your due diligence and make sure you're reading and understanding, and if you're not, asking questions.
It's a real process. It's a huge one.
It is.
Well, and I mean, when I sold my first house, my lawyer at the time was Rosemary Loge, and we had some trouble on closing, and she negotiated, like she did all of that for me, so that I didn't have to worry about it, right? Like it was closing day, and there were some issues, and she handled that part, which took a lot off of me, right? And it ended up, you know, some changes in the purchase price, but I was really thankful to have that expertise because she understood what they were talking about. I had no idea.
Right. And,
Right?
and your lawyer is your advocate in
Right.
this situation.
And that's exactly what
most
happened.
average people don't know all the legal jargon. They don't understand all these terms. They don't know what this means. And they don't always know when there's an issue on closing, is there recourse? Is there
Right.
anything I can do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people are just so excited to close and, you know.
Get in.
Yeah, it made a difference for sure. We talked briefly about home inspections and things like that, but how can buyers protect themselves when it comes to, you know, especially in doing our own proper due diligence when we're about to buy a home? Like, home inspection is key. One of the issues that became an issue in my first home was the land survey. You know, and my neighbor didn't agree with it and cut down 3 of my trees.
This happens all the time. You hear about
Right.
these situations.
Even though we had it surveyed, we had the property surveyed, but I came home from work one day and he'd cut down 3 of my big trees.
Of course, yeah. So, I mean, that might get into another legal issue if someone's cutting down trees on your property. But with a survey, again, sometimes people look at surveys, they have no idea what that survey is actually telling them. They don't know what all those lines and all those numbers and all that information means. So, again, it's important, talk to a lawyer. Make sure a lawyer is reviewing these documents with you, helping you understand what you're looking at, and not being scared to back out of a deal. If you see something that you're not comfortable with and you can't get an answer that makes you comfortable after a lawyer explains to you and you've done your due diligence, then walk away from the deal. Sometimes it's not worth it. If at the end of the day you're purchasing a home or a property that you're not happy with and there's so many issues, you know, walk away from the deal.
In our last minute, because we just have about a minute left, what's your best tip?
Be excited, but don't let your excitement blind you. And when in doubt, get a lawyer. Talk to a lawyer. You know, they'll save you money in the long run. They'll give you peace of mind. They are your strongest advocate in this situation. You know, your realtor is too. Realtors play a very, very important role. But at the end of the day, the lawyers are going to be the ones to break down, to give you the bad news that you need to hear sometimes.
Right.
That's the tough part, eh?
Yeah.
That's the tough part.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You did
No,
a
I
beautiful
loved it.
job as Dee, and we're so appreciative of the valuable information you provided for us and our viewers today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, having done it a couple of times in the last few years, like it is so easy to get carried away by
is.
you know the
No,
picket
it's
fence or the
exciting.
whatever you know,
Start
or the visions of
Yeah.
what you're gonna do.
Picking
right?
up paint colors. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
The fun
fun.
stuff.
It is fun.
Yeah, it is fun. But and I will say, like, you know, it is a bit of money when you get that legal advice, but it's absolutely worth it in the end.
Totally worth it.
You
in
know,
the
for
long
that
run.
stress factor, but also
Yeah.
that advocate. You know, I've worked with great realtors. We have amazing
Right.
realtors here on the river, and
True.
you know, and of course the mortgage brokers. We have some great of those as well.
yeah.
So yeah, it's hard, but you know, get the best advice you can get.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. It's totally worth it in the
To
long
see
run.
past that kind of haze of excitement that you get, you know, and it was the same with me. We had the house inspection, fantastic, and everything else that support was amazing. So it's worth the money.
So people now have lots to go on when they're thinking about this whole venture
Good.
and making that move. They have heard from Guy and they've heard from you, and they can put it all together now and think logically and sensibly
Very important.
with the right tools that you provided, both
Right.
of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been so lucky, so fortunate to have 2 incredible guests today to help us navigate those really tough kind of conversations that you have to have amidst all of the excitement. So we hope that you learned as much today as we did. Have a fantastic week, everybody. Thank you for the wonderful messages of support that I've been getting. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you all next week.
See you next week.